Hey, what's up you guys? This is my 2021 mid-year book freakout tag. This was originally created by Our Grade Books and I will leave her original video linked in the description. If you don't know, this is just a fun tag that everyone does around this time of year, June/July, to talk about the books that we've read so far in the year, what else we're looking forward to in the year, and just a lot of, stuff to basically freak out over the fact that half the year is already gone. So if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and please subscribe. And if you want to do this tag for yourself, obviously I will have the original one linked down below, and I'll also have a list of questions linked down below or in the description anyway. And you should definitely do it if you have a booktube channel, because it's kind of like just one of those tags that everyone seems to do and it's quite fun. So without any further ado, let's get started on question 1. Question number 1 is nice and simple and is just what is my favourite book that I've read so far in 2021. And for me it is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I just read this last month in May and I absolutely loved it. I really gushed about it in my May wrap up if you've not seen that. And I basically just feel like this book was written for me. It is so perfect and one of my favourite all-time quotes from a book, which is too long for me to even try and talk about here. It's the one about the fig tree if you've read The Bell Jar. It just spoke to my soul. If you don't know, Sylvia Plath wrote The Bell Jar. It's kind of a fictionalised version of her own life, and it's about a woman who basically, long story short, gets depressed and ends up in a psychiatric ward. And although I've never been in a psychiatric ward myself, I could relate so much to a lot of the thoughts and feelings that Sylvia Plath discussed in the book, and she just poured her heart and soul into it, and I absolutely adored it. And I want to reread it straight away, but I'm going to hold off a little bit before I reread it. But yeah, I'm obsessed with The Bell Jar. Question number 2 is the best sequel that I have read so far this year, and I really have to think about this one because I have been focusing a lot on classics this year more than ever, and also just standalone books. I really hadn't read that many series, but I did read the Last Hours, book 2, which is Chain of Iron. I literally forgot what it's called there, so that's a good sign. Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare is book 2 in the Last Hours series, which is a mini series within the overall Shadowhunter series, which I am obsessed with, and I really enjoyed Chain of Iron. I felt like it really improved a lot on Chain of Gold, even though I gave them both 4 stars. Chain of Gold, there were just too many characters and there was just a lot going on that I don't know, I just wasn't a super big fan of it. I thought it was a little bit disappointing, but Chain of Iron, because I was much more used to the characters and all the plots were starting to come together and stuff, I really enjoyed it a lot more. Even though I still gave them both 4 stars, in my head, I enjoyed it a lot more. So yeah, I actually haven't read that many series, and to be honest, this is a 4 star, so it's not like I loved it, but it's the only answer I really had for this question. Question number 3 is one I don't really have an answer to, and it is about new releases from the first half of the year that I have not got to yet. I don't really keep up with new releases at all, so I don't genuinely have an answer to this one. I'm sure there is some that are just not coming to mind right now, but to be honest, I just don't really keep up with new releases. But question 4 is an anticipated release for the second half of the year, and for me it is The Sword of Light by Caroline Logan. This is book 3 in her 4 Treasures series, and I am absolutely obsessed with this series. It is a Scottish-inspired fantasy. Caroline Logan is a Scottish author, and it is YA, and I just cannot recommend it enough. I just love the characters most of all, then also obviously the Scottish setting and the little Scottish myths and folklore and stuff that she brings into it are all so fun. And my main thing though is just the characters. I love the characters, I love the relationships. They are the perfect found family. If you loved found family books, you will love this series. And I am just super excited for book 3 because I gave both of the first 2 books 5 stars. The next question is my biggest disappointment of the year so far, and mine is the Earthsea series by Ursula K. Le Guin. I just buddy read these last month with Eleanor, who I will also leave a link in the description. There's always so many links to add in my videos, but she will be down there. She's also a Scottish booktuber, so I highly recommend checking her out. She is so great, and she actually done a series standalone review for the Earthsea series, so definitely go and check that out. But yeah, the Earthsea series for me was okay. The first 3 books were all 3 star, and then books 4 and 5 were both 4 star, and books 4 probably just deserved 3 stars, but I enjoyed the audiobook narrator because I switched to audiobook for that one. But I just found overall it was a little bit of a drag. It wasn't really as connected as I wish it would be for a series. The first 3 books, as I said in my May wrap up, were kind of a little bit standalone-ish. They obviously do have an overarching plot, but the series doesn't have an overarching villain, like Voldemort, for example, or something like that, which is kind of what I expected. And I don't know, it just wasn't really what I wanted it to be, and I found myself quite bored a lot of the time, and the writing style was just like really dry and hard to get through at times. And the earlier books, the last two, not as well, the last one definitely not, the fourth one. But yeah, I don't know, I just expected a lot more from this series because it is so hyped up and it is like a classic fantasy series, and Ursula K. Le Guin was one of my favourite authors. But to be honest, after reading that and also reading The Dispossessed by her last month, which I forgot to talk about in my wrap up or just didn't have time for, she's honestly kind of went down a little bit in my favourite authors list. Question number 6 is my biggest surprise of the year, and mine is Nana by Emile Zola. This is a French classic, and I had this on my physical TBR forever, and I kept saying I was going to get to it, and I never did. And then finally, back in February or March, I finally read it, and I loved it so much. It was so good. It is basically, like, long story short, about a woman who goes from being a streetwalker to kind of like a high-class prostitute, and she just becomes like the ultimate, I don't want to say villain, but of like her own story, but she is just like ruthless at the end. Like there is a 50-page section near the end that I just was like, this is one of my favorite female characters I've ever read about. She was just like, I don't want to spoil anything. She was just such a bad bitch. Like I actually was obsessed with it at that point. Like I enjoyed it the whole way through, and then I got to that section and I was just like, this is like a 6-star book. Like I loved it so much. And I'm so annoyed at myself that I waited so long to read it. Like I had it on my physical TBR for maybe like 5 months or something like that before I finally got to it. But yeah, I absolutely loved Nana, and I'm so glad I finally got to it because I was not expecting it to be that good. Question 7 is your new favourite author, and I'm going to have to honestly say Sylvia Plath. Even though she only has one novel, which is The Bell Jar, and I haven't read her poetry collections yet, I'm so obsessed with The Bell Jar and so impressed by it. Like her prose and the way that she poured her soul into it and just everything about it. The fact that it's basically her life as well. I'm just like obsessed. Like I've always wanted to read a Sylvia Plath biography just because I've read her Wikipedia page before and she has like a really tumultuous and interesting life. And then obviously her death is kind of sadly iconic. Like I don't think you should want your death to be iconic, but it is. And she's just like such an interesting person, and I cannot wait to read more of her poetry. I read Daddy before, like last year. It's so good. Like I'm not really super into poetry, although saying that I actually have read quite a few poetry collections and stuff recently, which I've enjoyed. So maybe I'm getting more into poetry. Like that is poetry right there. It's Lana Del Rey's poetry. But yeah, I don't know. I just like I'm obsessed with Sylvia Plath right now, and I cannot wait to learn more about her by reading an autobiography. Or no, not auto, just a biography, and her poetry as well. The next few, I don't really have that many good answers for. I'm kind of struggling this year with this tag apparently, but question 8 is your newest fictional crush. I don't really get that. I'm like 23, but I mean, there probably is some I'm just not thinking of. I don't know, I'm gonna have to skip that one. And question 9 is your newest favourite character. Okay, I am so bad with like character names and stuff, unless it's someone iconic, like for example, Katniss or like Bella and Edward, I don't know, something from like that era. Like a lot of the classics and stuff. Obviously I just talked about how I love Nana. I would say her again, but I just said her for the last question basically. So I'm gonna have to say that an overall group of characters that I loved were the students in the Battle Royale book. I really enjoyed reading that. I done it as a buddy read with Alistair Reviews It. I'll link him down below. Not that he needs my promo, he's like way more popular than me. But that was just so fun to read, and there's so many characters at first that you think, okay, this is gonna be like so overwhelming. But you do basically just follow like a few main characters and like the main kind of villains, antagonists, and then you dip in and out and you meet so many students basically in the same chapter that they die, but you become so attached to them straight away, and they all stand out from each other, and they all have like really interesting like personality traits and little bits of their history that you learn and stuff. So I just thought that the way that the author managed to write so many characters and then also make you care about almost all of them at the same time in such a short space of time was really impressive. Question 10 is a book that made you cry, and I have never cried at a book. Back in like 2010, 11, whenever I read Hunger Games, You Know Rue almost made me cry, but I didn't, and I've still never cried at a book, I don't think. However, The Invisible Life of Adele LaRue, that ending almost got me. I mean, I didn't even like tear up a little bit, but you know, inside I was like, okay, this is getting me in the feels. Like, I don't want to spoil it. Not the part that I don't know. I feel like what I imagine most people cry at is not the part that I got emotional at. The part that I got emotional at was like right at the very, 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 very end. I don't want to spoil it at all, but if you read the book, that almost got me. Question 11 is a book that made you happy, and I am going to cheat again a little bit. I am like cheating at half these questions, but for this one I'm going to talk about back in January. I done a whole bunch of rereads back in January. I thought, you know what, I'm going to start the year off right. I'm going to start off with a whole bunch of 5-star books and reread some of my old favourites. And I reread the Renegade series by Marissa Meyer and Wuthering Heights and a few others. I can't remember what else I've reread now, but that was just like such a perfect way to start off the year. I'm definitely going to do that again next year. Not the same books, but I do have like a bunch of books that I want to reread. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to save them till January. So for example, The Bell Jar, definitely get and reread then. Twilight, I really want to reread again. Or Midnight Sun, I'm not sure which yet. And Jane Eyre and The Tenant of Welfare Hall, I want to reread those. So I just think it was like the perfect way to start off the year, and it made me like so happy back in January, just like reliving my favourite moments, especially the Renegade series by Marissa Meyer. It was just like so fun. Question 12 is, what is the most beautiful book that you have bought or received this year? And once again, surprise, surprise, I'm going to cheat. I got this one for Christmas, but I don't know if I'm sure I did show it off. I definitely done like a Christmas book haul. But yeah, I got this Folio Society edition of Agnes Grey, and I just like really love the art and stuff in it. It's like kind of not really expect. It's very like abstract, but I just really love it. And you know, I like all the books I have this year, but none of them are like super beautiful. Like most of the books I buy are in like the Penguin Classics or the SF Masterworks and stuff like that. So although I love them all as like a collection together, individually, like although they're nice, I wouldn't call them like beautiful books to be honest. But yeah, this one is like obviously got like proper art in it, so that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna cheat again for like the 7th question in this tag and talk about a book that I got at Christmas. Question 13 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And my physical TBR is actually a joke right now. I think it was like the start of May. I had 50. I was down to 50. I think I got to 60. I got down to 50. I was like, okay, I'm reading like 12 to 18 books a month right now. I could easily get this below 30 by like the end of June. Right now, I'm back to 57 books. I cannot get my physical TBR done. As soon as I read a book, 2 more just like make their way in. And that 57 is not even true, by the way. That is cheating. There are some that I have removed because I DNF'd them, and I still want to get back to them. For example, The Monk. I'm pretty sure The Monk by Matthew Lewis isn't on there. And then all those little mini Penguin moderns that I have, like the little tiny blue, I should have got some out. They are not included in the 57. And then there's some that I got, this is so bad, there's like a couple of books that I got from a charity shop recently, and I just decided not to add them to my Goodreads list because I was like, well, if they're not on the list then they don't really count, which is a lie because they obviously still count. They're literally like in my shelves, like the same as every other book, but for some reason I'm like, oh, if they're not on the Goodreads shelf then they don't count. So long story short, there is, I've said that phrase a few times in this video, I have a lot of books to get to. Ones that I really, really feel like I want to get to is I have like 6 or 7 Charles Dickens books physically like on me, like in my room, and I'm not reading them. I really want to read like some more Charles Dickens, just to, like get some of them down. Like the fact I have like 7 Charles Dickens books on my TBR, like my physical TBR, is ridiculous. And then I have like a bunch of the Penguin Classics I want to get to, and I just have a lot of books I want to get to, but for some reason the more I read, the more I buy, and it's a hard life. And then the final question is to give a shout out basically to another booktuber, and I'm going to give mine to Ashley, whose channel is Movie and Books Girl. She is another Scottish booktuber, and she also talks about movies as well, as the name implies, and she is just like so fun, she's so nice, and I was on her reading sprints once, which was kind of fun, and I definitely just think you should go and check her out if you are looking for some more Scottish booktubers or just some booktubers in general. She reads like a bunch of different stuff, like she doesn't really have a set genre, kind of same as me, which is why I like that. I like channels that read a whole bunch of different books, and she does like weekly live sprints if you're into those, and she also talks about movies, which I know people on booktube don't really like movie reviews that much. Back in 2020, like January or February, March, yeah, it must have been, it was pre pandemic, so it was like February. I made a video and I was so excited for it, and it was called like movies I read and movies I watched in February 2020, and I was so excited. I felt like my energy was like so good in it and my reviews were so good, and then it literally is like the biggest flop I've ever uploaded. So I know that people don't always like movies, but if you do, or movie reviews, if you do, she does them as well. But yeah, I just want to give a little shout out to someone else from Scotland, just share the Scottish love, I guess. So that is all the questions. Like I said, I'm not going to tag anyone. If you want to do it, you definitely should, because everyone is going to be doing it. It's kind of the thing to do at this time of year. I thought I would jump on it at the start, because I haven't seen anyone else do it yet, so I thought, you know what, I'll get ahead of the trend and get it out this week, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a thumbs up, or a like, or whatever you want to call it, and I really... I literally cringe myself every time I do that, and I also, at the end of every video when I do this, then talk about me cringing while doing it. I'm just like a broken record. But yeah, please leave a like and please subscribe. Oh, thank you for 1.5k. I should have said that at the start. It only took me like a year to get from 1k to 1.5, but we did it at last, so thank you for that. And follow me on my social medias if you wish. Everything's linked down below. Check out the original tag and everyone else, and I will see you at my next video.